It begins on a dark, windy night along the Russian coast. Oleg, a reckless man with big dreams and bad luck, is helping a group of smugglers steal a ton of caviar. The sailor he's hired protests, warning that his small boat can only carry 600 kilos. Oleg, desperate for money, tricks him by pretending to call his wife, but he's actually calling the smuggler, telling him to lie and say the cargo is only 600 kilos. The plan works. The boat sets off loaded to the brim, but before long, the weight proves too much. The boat starts to sink, taking the entire shipment with it. Oleg and the others barely make it back to shore alive. The sailor demands compensation for his destroyed boat, so Oleg gives him his expensive new car, leaving himself broke, stuck with the sailor's old rusted vehicle, and buried under 1,000,000 rubles of debt to the smugglers. The next morning, Oleg goes to the bank to meet his girlfriend Sveta, hoping she can help him get a loan. But she can't. He hasn't even finished paying the last one. Wanting to help, she suggests they ask her family for support since they own a house. Oleg hates the idea. He can't stand her family, but he's desperate and out of options. They drive to her family's home, a cramped, chaotic house full of eccentric relatives. There's Sveta's father Boris, who hasn't stepped outside in 5 years because he's a wanted man and spends his days singing strange songs. Her grandfather Pavel, an old man who constantly complains he just wants to die already. Her sister Rita, an accountant who secretly dreams of becoming a performer. Her brother Tolik, who wants to join the army but can't because of asthma, and spends his time training dogs. And finally, Sveta's little sister Sasha, who idolizes Oleg and constantly daydreams about being a grown woman. When Oleg finally gets to talk to Boris about using the house as collateral, he's forced to wait for the old man to finish singing. When Boris finally listens, he's horrified at the idea, thinking selling the house is the same as selling the family into slavery. Oleg insists it's just a guarantor's letter, but Boris refuses. Suddenly, their argument is interrupted when a meteorite crashes straight through the roof, striking Pavel. The house shakes violently, and everyone runs outside in panic. When they look up and see a meteor shower streaking across the night sky, they realize what happened and rush back inside to check on Pavel. They lay him in bed, believing he's near death. Later that night, Oleg and the siblings try to dig the meteorite out of the ground, planning to sell it for money. One by one, everyone gives up and goes to bed, leaving Oleg digging alone. By morning, he's exhausted and filthy, but when he finally climbs out of the hole, Pavel calls him over. The old man says his last words, that his family can go to hell, and then seemingly dies. Oleg rushes to tell Sveta, but she's fast asleep. He lies down beside her and falls asleep too. Hours later, Tolik wakes him and drags him to the living room. To Oleg's shock, the meteorite has melted into a strange liquid, and the family members have changed. Sasha suddenly has super strength, Rita can float in midair, and Sveta appears half invisible. Even more shocking, Pavel, who was just dead, is alive and moving again. When Rita loses control and floats up through the roof, she quickly falls back down and Pavel dies once more. They realize something strange. Whenever they're all in the same room, their powers activate, and Pavel comes back to life. When one of them leaves, the powers vanish and Pavel dies again. They test the theory and it's true. Their abilities only function when the entire family is together. They visit a doctor, but he finds nothing abnormal about their bodies. The separation effect, he says, must be simply part of how their powers work. That evening, the family debates what to do. Rita dreams of using her powers to perform on stage. Pavel warns that if people find out, the government will experiment on them. Tolik happily discovers he can understand what dogs are saying, and Oleg, seeing an opportunity, proposes they use the powers to make money by appearing on television. But Boris refuses to turn his family into a circus act. That night, Oleg tries asking Sveta again about the money in her bank, while she wonders aloud if their children would be born invisible. The next morning, Pavel tries to hang himself, but fails. As long as the family is together, he simply can't die. Meanwhile, Boris discovers his power is teleportation after accidentally vanishing while using the bathroom. Realizing everyone's on edge, Boris decides the family needs a vacation. They drive to a lake to relax and fish. As Boris practices his teleporting, Oleg suggests a plan: they should rob a bank. With Sveta's invisibility, she can walk in and out unnoticed, while the rest of the family stays nearby to keep the powers active. Sveta's siblings actually like the idea, but Boris refuses, furious that Oleg would use them for crime. Oleg storms off, and Sveta follows him. Before they leave, she tells her family to keep Pavel's body in the basement until they come back. On the road, the couple is forced to pull over by a car full of smugglers, the same men Oleg owes money to. They give him 1 week to repay the debt, or they'll sell his organs on the black market. After they leave, Sveta realizes how much danger Oleg is truly in and agrees to help with the heist. The next day, they try to convince Boris again. Oleg shows him a luxurious new house they could buy if the plan works. Boris says he doesn't need a new house, but when Sveta tearfully tells him that this is the first time she's ever asked for his help, and he's ignoring her, Boris finally gives in. The family agrees to rob the bank. They plan the details carefully and celebrate together afterward. That night, Sasha, jealous of her sister, keeps interrupting Oleg and Sveta's private time. The next morning, she even puts on makeup to impress him. Before the robbery, the family sets their own conditions. Pavel wants to be cremated after it's over. Rita wants to perform for an audience. Sasha wants a date with Oleg. Oleg protests, but Boris tells him that if he wants the family's help, he has to help them too. Oleg reluctantly agrees. He arranges Rita's performance at the theater and discovers his own strange power. He can shoot water from his finger, which Sveta jokingly calls useful for watering plants. The next morning, Oleg and Sveta scout the bank, bringing Sasha along. Since the bank isn't the one where Sveta works, suspicion won't fall on them. They go over the plan again, but Sasha asks what happens if Sveta is caught. Who would take care of Oleg then? Sveta teases that maybe Sasha could. Later that day, Tolik proudly announces he's been accepted into the army. Oleg panics. They need him for the robbery. He pulls strings to cancel Tolik's enlistment, which enrages the boy but keeps him home. Next, they arrange Pavel's cremation in advance, just in case. Then, Oleg takes Sasha to lunch at a fancy restaurant while the rest of the family spies from afar, and Sveta, invisible, sits right next to them. Sasha tells Oleg she wants to run away with him after the robbery because she can't stand her family anymore. Before Oleg can respond, the smugglers appear again. Sasha realizes who they are and, without hesitation, beats them up in front of everyone. The family flees before things escalate, and Sasha loses her super strength once she's separated from them. That night, they rest while Tolik's dog sings the national anthem, a weird but peaceful moment. The next day, it's finally time. Oleg parks the getaway car under the sun, while Boris points to a shaded alley, but it has a no parking sign. Inside, Sveta takes off her clothes to become fully invisible and slips into the bank with Oleg. She memorizes security codes and safe combinations while Oleg takes pictures of the floor map. Outside, Boris moves the car into the alley for shade, a mistake, because it's reserved for armored trucks. When one arrives, the guards order them to move, but they can't, or Sveta will lose her powers. The guards ram the car out of the way with their truck, forcing Sveta to become visible, and completely naked, in front of two stunned people. Panicking, the family drags Pavel's body near the bank entrance to restore their powers. Sveta vanishes again, and the men assume they hallucinated it. Just when things calm down, police arrive. Boris, thinking he's still wanted, teleports inside their truck by accident and gets arrested. Oleg bails him out later, at the cost of another car. Furious, Oleg yells at everyone for messing up and makes them promise never to misuse their powers again. But promises don't last long. The next day, they have to fulfill Rita's dream, her performance. When she steps on stage, she panics at the sight of the crowd and flies away. Outside, Oleg is ambushed by the smugglers, who beat him up right on stage, turning him into an unwilling performer. Bruised and humiliated, Oleg lashes out at the family, calling them lazy and useless. He tries to leave, but Boris decides they're not letting him go. That night, they kidnap Oleg, to make sure the bank robbery finally happens. They set their plan in motion. Pavel distracts nearby drunks by breathing fire using fuel, while Sasha uses her strength to push a truck in front of the street as cover. Rita chains the bank's window, and Boris teleports inside. Then Sasha throws Sveta through the hole, and Rita flies her the rest of the way. Inside, Sveta uses her memorized codes to disable the alarm. Sasha rips the safe out of the wall and hurls it outside, while the others load the money into the car. Police arrive, but Tolik unleashes his dogs on them. The family grabs what they can and drives off, leaving chaos and smoke behind. As they celebrate their success at dawn, Pavel reminds them of his last wish, to be left alone to finally die. The family reluctantly agrees and drives away. But moments later, they see his body collapse, and they rush back. Pavel angrily tells them to let him go. Boris insists they should all stay together as a family, but Oleg reminds him that they can't. The police will track them down soon. Each of them already has plans. He and Sveta will flee to Thailand, Tolik to Moscow, and the girls to Brazil. Before they can argue more, Pavel reveals he's called the police to report his own death. The family flees again. Hours later, as Oleg divides the stolen cash, Sveta refuses to take any of it, saying they should return the money. When Oleg refuses, she kicks him out of the car, ending their relationship. Oleg uses part of the money to pay off his debt to the smugglers, hiding the rest under his clothes. At the airport, he's about to escape when he sees on the news that the family has been arrested, caught trying to recover Pavel's body from the funeral home. At first, Oleg tries to ignore it, but guilt wins. He turns back. He bribes the funeral home worker to release Pavel's body, but the man demands 1 million rubles. Oleg has no choice. He gives him everything he has left. With Pavel's body, he rushes to the courthouse where the family is on trial. The moment Oleg enters, their powers reactivate. Chaos erupts. Boris teleports out of the cage, Sasha breaks the bars, and the whole family fights the guards while terrified spectators flee the room. Together again, they overpower everyone. Boris looks at Oleg proudly and declares him a true member of the family. Outside, armed police await. Rita distracts them by flying overhead, glowing in the sunlight like an angelic figure. As the officers stare in awe, the family steals a car and speeds off. The police give chase through the city. Boris teleports into their cars to send them spinning. Sasha smashes through others with brute strength. When the windshield gets covered in produce after crashing through a vegetable stand, Oleg cleans it using water from his finger. Finally, Rita lifts the car into the air, making them vanish into the sky. Sometime later, the family meets the smugglers one last time and pays them to smuggle them out of the country inside a shipping container. As the doors close, Boris smiles. They have 20 days of travel ahead, and the only people they'll have to put up with are each other.